It's interesting, like you said, that if someone loses their house, it doesn't matter what is the reason, right? They say, I lost my house, but there's not necessarily a follow-up question on that.
I'm sure that in many instances we speak to individuals about, what caused them to lose their housing so that we can help them be successful if we're able to help them identify their next housing opportunity. In some instances, those things are absolutely out of individuals' control. There was a woman, that was recently featured in a local news story whose house burned down several years ago, and she lost everything. And she hasn't been able to find housing since then. So I think it doesn't matter that somebody lost their house to a fire or because of an eviction because they couldn't afford to pay rent. We still need a system and a safety net and opportunities for people to get rehoused in all of those situations.
I agree, but if you don't know the reason why, like you just mentioned two reasons that are tragic, and I would argue are probably the exception, maybe not the rule. In legal settings, to determine if someone, for example, in negligent cases, right, in tort cases, you need to have two causes that you need to determine have occurred, right? So you have the but-for cause and the proximate cause. So a classic example of that is a bus driver drops a woman in a location that is not her original bus stop, and she needs to walk in a high crime neighborhood, and she gets robbed and she gets hurt. And then the question is whether the bus driver is negligent for doing so. So why did the woman got injured? Proximate cause is because she got robbed and got hit. But there is an underlying cause, the but-for cause. But for the driver dropping her off in her designated station, none of that would have happened, right? So that's, to me, like, if we don't understand why people lose their houses, how can we help them?
Well, I would say that, I think what I'm saying is that people are losing their homes for a variety of reasons, and we do want to address the reasons that they left, but there's nothing I can do about preventing fire.
Sure, but the example, how many people lose their houses to fire?
I have no idea.
So do you have like a database that determines how many people what is the reasons why folks lost their houses or could not afford the house anymore?
I think that when we're working with people who are experiencing homelessness and they have told us that they lost their home, we absolutely work with them to identify what resources they have to potentially get into another housing option. If they choose to tell us that they lost their housing because they lost their job, in many instances, like during COVID especially, that happened. We saw a lot of people lose their jobs, so they couldn't afford their rent, and they were evicted. And so we work with individuals to help them.
Wasn't an eviction moratorium?
There was an eviction moratorium, and it ran out.
But didn't it run out very recently?
It's been at least 6 months now, so we're certainly seeing that rental assistance support and eviction moratorium are no longer there to protect people from being evicted for non-payment of rent, and rent is going up. So we know in many instances, rent is increasing at levels that are around 20% annually. Well, wages can't keep up with that level. Wages are increasing around 6%. And so housing is just becoming more unattainable for folks that, might be employed. If somebody loses their job and loses their home, we will work with them on both trying to find housing they can afford and connecting them back to employment services. So we are addressing the underlying cause, but it's much easier to address that underlying cause once somebody is again stably housed so that they have a place to rest, they have a place to shower, they have a place to eat, which is going to make them a more employable and an effective employee.